Hey there, so in this video I want to explain to HTTP request smuggling and what it really is. So in short, you're taking advantage of two encoding methods, which is content length and transfer encoding. And you're going through at least two servers, maybe more, and then these servers they process it differently. So maybe this one here is a CL.TE. So the first server is gonna look at content length first and take that into consideration, and the second server is gonna go transfer encoding afterwards. And if both servers support both of them, then transfer encoding takes priority. So, for example, for example here, this is a good example here. Uh, what happens is, as the content length, I say over here is 49. Again, this is very important. It means that it's 49 from here to here, right? So the first server, oh sorry, for the first request, the first server here, right? It sees the headers, which is all this stuff here. This is all the headers. So it sees the headers, and then it sees all this here. And that's 49 in length. So it sees all that, and then it passes on to the second server, and the second server again sees all these headers and says chunks, because the second server here, it says here the second server is a TE, which means it's chunks. So it only takes this into consideration and leaves all this out. So the second server only sees this, and then it's done. It's finished. And then when you press the request again, because this was left over from the previous request, from the previous one, it's still there. It's left over. What happens is that everything gets appended onto the second request, and that sort of like bypasses the the security. And that's for that. So over here, you can see right here, everything gets all appended again to the second one. And the opposite is true for the TE.CL. So it means that it does transfer encoding first here. So on the first request, it sees this. This is a 70C. 70. If you're not quite sure what 7C is, you can go to your decoder in your Burp suite, and you go into decoder right up here, and then type in 7C. Oops. 7C, and that's a hexadecimal, so it means 124 characters. So over here is 124 characters up to the 0, right? And the 0 signifies the end of the chunked request, and has to be two enters afterwards for it to process through. So that'll be the first server. So the first server will see this, because the first server is TE. Let me just copy that down. Let's go here. First server. It sees this. Let's just do that. So the first server sees that, because the first server is TE. So it just sees the transfer encoding, and then on the second server, and let's put that. The second server, it doesn't recognize transfer encoding. What happens? It scrolls down, and it sees it just sees this. So the second server only sees this there, and then so that's for the second server, and then it ends right there. And on the second request, so that's only for the first request, and goes to two servers. For the second request, what happens is that everything gets appended onto that. So the second request, it goes again to the top here, and all this. Oh no, wait, sorry, my mistake. So so for the second server, what happens is that it looks up, it goes to the top here and sees a content length of 4, right? A content length of 4, and this here is the content length of 4. So the second server doesn't see any of that. The second server only sees this 7C. So all of this gets excluded out. So the first server, it goes through everything here. It gets everything, and then on the second server, it only sees 4C, because if up here it says content length of 4. So it just cuts off right here. And then on the second request, this is what's left over. That's what's left over. Right there. Yeah. On the second request, well, actually, you gotta put down what's left over. So this is what's left over. All this is left over. Or is just the 0? Okay. So on the second request, if the first thing that happens, so not the second one. This is the second request. The first thing happens is that it goes through this, and then your initial request gets added on. Gets added on to this right over here. And because this X is open, it automatically assumes that all this is a part of it. So all that really happens is on the second request, all that really happens is just looks at this, and he thinks that the content. Oh, this is supposed to be a post. It thinks that the content body is all that. So, and they probably should show you an example. I'm gonna do an example here. Where's a good example? Here. Here are two great examples. The first one does a CL content vulnerability. Let's go in here. Let's open this. And let's. This is already solved this, but I'm gonna solve it again for you guys. Let's go to my burp suite. Let's go to my proxy. Let's go to my history. Let's clear all this. And all we're just gonna do is we're just gonna look at the first page. Capture the first page. Go to history. Okay. Let's transfer this to repeater. Okay, now okay, here it is. Repeater. You do not need any of all this. You don't need, so you can delete it all. And you can keep connection if you want. You can just put down here keep alive dash alive, or you don't even need connection. What you do need is content dash length. We'll keep that blank for now. And transfer encoding. That's gonna be chunked. That's chunked. And yeah, so that'll be the first request. And on the second, for this lab, we are supposed to well, it says here you're supposed to delete the Carlos. I'm just gonna jump right to the solution though. You want to delete the Carlos. Yeah, so you want to basically delete that here. So in short, oops, let's go back here. In short, you want to delete that there. So so on the first request, and again, this is CL. So CL is the first server, so that's what's going to get. That's going to be considered first. And on the second server, it's going to be chunked. So you want to put a 0 there, and then it has to be an enter, like enter enter. So this is enter enter, and then you can start your second request. And yeah. So on the first, so basically, this is what you want to do. You want to delete it through this, and then you want to, but you need the content length. So the content length starts from 0 all the way here. It says here it's 47. characters. Then you have to put on 47 characters here. You send this through. It's a request. Okay, I forgot. You have these all have to be post requests. Post. There we go. Send this through. It says it's okay. Send it again. And if you look down here, if you go to render, it says you can only access this lab. The admin can only be available to local users. So you're going to add on to this and do host. And over here, you want to use local, because that's be localhost. So localhost is either localhost or 127.0.0.1. So those are both local hosts, but in this case it wants localhost. And because this changed here, you have to update the content length. So here it says there's 64. Up here you have to do 64. Let's send this. Okay, second one. It says unauthorized. And you look down for the message. It says admin can only be available to localhost. Yeah, okay. I think it's because, okay. The host, yeah. Let's try that again. Local users. Yeah, localhost. Yeah, that's found. Okay, there we go. And so that now it went through. Look here. It says it's solved the lab. If it didn't work, then you can do this. You can either put if it didn't work, you can either put on here x equals nothing, or x equals 1, or x equals anything. And that's for the first one. So maybe the first one was CL, so it does the content length first. It looks through here and does the content length first, and then so for the first server it does the content length, and the second server it ends right here, right? And this gets left over for the second request, right? And so the first thing it sees on the second request is this delete admin, and it just does it right away. And that's how you request that. Now for the other type, this is a TE.CL Vulnerability. Let me just get rid of that and get rid of that, and let's go into this and let us clear this. Let's clear all this. Okay, this is also solved, and yeah. So chunk is done first, and then content length is afterwards. So this is a TE first. So let's access this lab. Takes a couple seconds apparently. And so it's the same thing essentially. Um, all you really want is this. I'll show you what's happening. So let's go to home and let's take a look at. Yeah, well, let's clear this. I can just clear this here. Let's do that again. Home. Okay, so this is home here. You will send this request to repeater. This is repeater. Again, you don't need all this. All this you can just get rid of. And let's get rid of that. You can go keep alive. It doesn't really matter. You don't really need connection. I like to put keep alive. There. And again, you need content dash length. Keep that blank. And then we're gonna have transfer encoding. Actually, content length is gonna be very short. It's gonna be like I think it's four characters. Well, okay. Before I do that, I'm gonna show you why it's gonna be. We had to put that short. So transfer encoding has to be chunks. Oops. Let's spell right. Chunk. and then that is the request that we want to send. So the first server does transfer encoding. So that's for the first server. Okay, it says here 87. Okay, first of all, you gotta know what the length here is. So it says here the length here is 135. 135 characters. Go up to here. Go to your decoder. Type 130. Oops, let's delete all that. 135. 135. 135. We're gonna encode this as hex. So it's 87. So in hexadecimal, it's 87. So here in repeater, this has to be 87 characters here. And so for the first request is chunked encoding. So the first request is going to process all this. And over here, it has to be enter, enter. I'm going to get rid of that. Enter, enter. It has to, without always chunk encoding, always have to have an enter, enter afterwards. So the first request gets all this. Well, first request does all this. And thinks that this is part of the body. And on the second request, it what happens here? Okay, so over here, from here to here, and from the bottom right here, look here, it's 4 characters. See number 4? So the content length is 4. So for the first request, all this gets okay. So not the first request, the first server, all this goes through, and on the second server, only this gets through, and what's left over is all this. That's what's left over. And so when you do the second request, this is the first thing it sees, and it processes this. So, okay. So yeah. So let's do this. Let's give this a try. So the first request, you do this. Oh, for get request. Oh yeah. First, you always have to do a post. Always has to be post. So the first, that's basically. So that's the first request, and then the second one. Okay, that's first. Delete host admin. Did it go through? Content length 15 URL code. Okay, you do. We have to do a content type. I forgot. You always have to do content type as well. My mistake. So for all these ones, you have to do content type. Even up here, it should be right over here. So the first request, second request, and yeah, keep alive. Is it giving me any information? Let's try that. Okay. Oh, I see why. Okay. The reason why this is occurring is because this was only supposed to be 4. It keeps changing. Oh, it changed again. Okay, that's not good. 4. And then this. Oh, so you gotta go to repeater. You gotta right click. Okay, up here, repeater, right click, and you do not want to update. You do not want to update content length. So that was the reason why. Let's go back to repeater. Let's go back here. Send this. Keeps on updating. 4. And then there we go. And if you look at the So you remember to here repeater. Make sure the update content is not clicked. Look here, it is solved. So again, what happened was on the first request here, the first server, this went through on the first server because it was chunked. This went through. On the second server, only this went through, right? And everything that's left over, this is all that's left over. So when you hit the second request, the first thing it sees is this, and it deletes it right away. So I hope that was, yes, it's confusing. You have to do a couple practice questions, but I think that's the best I can explain it to you.